that if a number, a plus the square root of b, is a root of a polynomial equation, where a and b are rational numbers and the square root of b is an irrational number, then we know that a minus the square root of b is also a root, okay? So this is the same thing as the complex, similar to the complex conjugate theorem from the last section, okay? So this is similar to the complex conjugate theorem. Okay, so if you get some sort of irrational number as a root, know that you're going to get both a positive and negative one out of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at the next page. And what I want to do is go ahead and talk about this real quick. And it says write a polynomial function with complex roots. And what I want to do is I want to write this polynomial of the least degree that has the roots of 0 and 2 plus I, okay? So here's the thing about this, all right? You have the roots. You have x equals 0, okay? And you have the root x equals 2 plus I, okay? So now the other thing that we need to consider here is that we have to also have, in addition to x equals 2 plus I, we have to have x equals 2 minus I. We have to have its conjugate. Okay, and we talked about that in the last section, okay? That if I have a complex root or an imaginary root, we also have to have its conjugate, okay? So these are my roots, okay? These are my roots. All right, and I want to turn these into factors, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then take those and set, x is equal to 0. That's already set equal to 0. My factors for that is just going to be x. But here I need to subtract 2 and subtract I. So my factors here is going to be x minus 2 minus an I, okay? And that's going to be equal to 0. And this is going to be equal to 0. And then over here, I'm going to take that and I'm going to get x minus 2 plus I and set that equal to 0. So now I have all of those factors, and so then I want to write my polynomial, okay? And so then I can take those factors, multiply them together, and that gives me my polynomial. All right, so what I'm going to get then, I'm going to write f of x is then equal to my first one, x, okay? My second one, x minus 2 minus I, okay? X minus 2, let me change that to blue, x minus 2 minus I, and then times x minus 2 plus I. Okay? And you could leave it like that, but let's go ahead and just multiply it out just so we can do that. So what I would do, let me multiply these two parts first, okay? And this part gets a little bit tricky, okay? But if I'm going to write f of x is equal to x, okay, I'm going to write this. I'm going to take x, this x value, and multiply it by everything I see here, okay? So I'm going to get x squared minus 2x, okay, and then plus x times I, okay? And then I'm going to take negative 2 and multiply it by everything I see over here. So then I get negative 2x, okay, plus 4, and then minus 2i, okay? And then I'm going to take I, or negative I, and multiply by every piece that I see here. So then what I'm going to get is I'm going to get negative I times x plus 2i, and then minus an I squared, okay? So this gets a little tricky. It gets becomes a pain. But I want you to notice something, okay? I want you to notice the imaginary parts. The positive xi and the negative xi, okay? Those are opposites. So and that's why we need the conjugate, is because when I have those opposites, those go away, all right? And then if I take negative 2i and positive 2i, those also go away, okay? So now, let's write down, what we have, all right? So my function f of x is equal to x times x squared minus 2x minus 2x, so that's going to give me minus 4x. And then I have a positive 4 here. And then, what else do I have left? I have that minus I squared. So this is going to be minus, and I squared, remember, is negative 1. Okay? And we just leave it like that. All right, so then what I end up getting is I get that my function f of x is equal to x times x squared minus 4x. And then I have 4, and then plus 1. Minus a negative is plus 1, so this becomes plus 5. Okay, and then I multiply out my x. And so then we end up getting that this is x cubed minus 4x squared plus 5x. And that's my polynomial. Okay, I know it's a lot of work to get to that point, and it's a lot of algebra, but, guys, I'm just using algebra. Okay, I'm just using the distributive property, and I'm just, simplifying and combining like terms. I'm not doing anything crazy, okay? Adding in this negative I and this positive I and multiplying these out, yes, is kind of a tricky part, but, it is something that we need to, deal with. All right. The next thing I want to do is write a polynomial function from a graph. Okay, so here's what I know. And here's where this kind of will help us later on, understand how to get these points. And it's nice because when they give us this graph, they give us 3 roots and a point on the graph, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to identify my roots, and that's these values here, okay? That's at negative 2, that's at x equals 0, and then at x equals positive 2, okay? And then I just have a random point on the graph here at 1, negative 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my roots, okay? So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to write down, my roots. All right, that's the first thing. And my roots, let's say that they are x equals 0, x equals negative 2, and x is equal to positive 2. Okay, so if I were to then take those roots and write them as factors, let me write that in red. Okay, if I were to write those as factors, I just get x equals 0. Okay, set each of these equal to 0, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides, so I get x plus 2 is equal to 0, and then I get x minus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so those are my factors. And then if I wanted to write my polynomial, okay, then write out my polynomial. Do that in boy blue. My polynomial. Then I'm going to write, f of x is equal to x times x plus 2 and then times x minus 2. Okay, so now that I have my polynomial, all right, we have to understand something. Okay, let's take a look at it real quick. All right, the first thing we need to talk about is that if I were to plot this graph, in Desmos, let me just do that real quick. Let me just plot that graph in Desmos and see if we get the exact same thing that we do here. Let me see if we get that point 1, negative 3. All right, so if I take a look at this, once we've graphed it, what I find out is that we actually do, in fact, have that same graph, okay? And that's something that you just want to verify from writing that, okay? And I know it's a degree 3, polynomial. It's got 2 terms in it. It's got 3, times it crosses the x-axis. So if I were to multiply this out, it would be a degree 3 system. So, and that's pretty much it, guys. It's really not too terrible. It's kind of an easy thing, but we just got to make sure that we do it correctly. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.